as predicted by yours truly, you were warned, Twitter suspends Antifa accounts with more than 71,000 followers. So the hammer dropped. The hammer most definitely dropped. Now, it wasn't just one Antifa account with 71,000 followers. It was like a number of Antifa accounts where the total added up to 71,000 followers. I don't remember the exact numbers, but some had like 7,000 here or there, and it was a mix, but some with a decent number of followers, a lot with a decent number of followers. My guess is that these are more people who are really directly involved and always going to protests and are probably crucial to the organizational aspect of it. They were suspended. Now, that's actually not the only thing that happened. Facebook, at the same time, shut down the Socialist Workers' Party in Britain. They had a Facebook page, decent number of followers. Again, they were directly involved in organizing. Facebook shut them down. Facebook also banned International Youth and Students for Social Equality at the University of Michigan. So a left-wing group from the University of Michigan, they were banned. We've discussed on this show, there were a number of articles, specifically when it comes to the issue of Palestine. There's a lot of banning that goes on. There's a lot of different pages that are for, freeing Palestine, and in social media circles, they get tagged as anti-Semitic, and then they get pulled down. Facebook has actually worked with the Israeli government on a number of pages that they viewed as problematic, and Facebook does the bidding of the Israeli government and just pulls them down with the broad label of we say these are anti-Semitic. It doesn't even have to be anti-Semitic. It could just be a pro-Palestine organization, and they get pulled down. And then there are the classic examples that we've talked about. Recently, Red Scare was taken off of Twitter, left-wing podcast. The Chapo Trap House Reddit was pulled down. And then, of course, a number of left-wing accounts were pulled down under the guise of, their Russian disinformation. And maybe even more importantly, there's a lot of, outsider, anti-establishment left-wing websites that have been deranked on Google. So it used to be the case that if you Google imperialism, a bunch of stuff would come up, or anti-imperialism, a bunch of stuff would come up, and it would be Chris Hedges on that topic. And now Chris Hedges' stuff is deranked, and it's significantly harder to find. So, listen, I hate to say I told you so, except I don't hate to say I told you so. I actually love to say I told you so in this sense. Well, no, I hate it in that the bad stuff actually happened. I would prefer the bad stuff didn't happen. But yes, this is exactly what we were talking about. Every time the topic of censorship comes up, or deplatforming comes up, or deprioritization on YouTube, which is another thing that we feel the brunt of that one, but I told you guys, it's not even that, hey, they're only banning bad right-wingers, and so the slippery slope is going to come for us. No, the argument was, it has already come for us, and it's a package deal. That's the way it works. In other words, you can't say, I want to ban people on the far right for political content, but I want to protect the left-wingers for political content, because it's a package deal. Now, again, let me be clear. This is not me saying that direct threats of violence should be allowed. Quite the contrary, direct threats of violence are illegal under the First Amendment of the United States of America. The acting interpretation of the First Amendment, the legality of it is, there are very few exceptions. One of those exceptions is you can't do direct threats of violence. So is this me saying, hey, direct threats of violence are swell, y'all? No, not at all. But the point is, direct threats of violence are actually pretty easy to figure out. You know what a direct threat of violence is and what a direct threat of violence isn't. But outside of direct threats of violence or clear cases of libel or slander, you do have to allow even people with the most odious of opinions, because that's what freedom of speech is. And it goes back to the famous Noam Chomsky quote, which is if you don't believe in freedom of speech for those opinions which you despise the most, then you don't believe in freedom of speech. So in other words, soon as everybody started cheering the deplatforming of Alex Jones, you made your bed and you were going to sleep in it. You did. Because listen, even in his extreme case, Like, let's take the worst thing he ever did, which was the questioning of the Sandy Hook massacre. The problem was when specific families and people and their names were brought up, which led to like harassment campaigns. So if you say, hey, this is like in some ways a direct threat of violence or a call to harassment, if you want to make that argument, and if the companies agree, okay, I think everybody sees it, but the solution would be to that problem. That's the video that gets pulled down. That video. The video where he says those things. So in other words, the response was instead the internet death penalty for Alex Jones. That you maybe did this thing which is unacceptable, and we all agree it's unacceptable, right? If you're harassing the parents of Sandy Hook victims, of course. But the solution was just nuke his whole channel and his whole existence online. Now, not only do I not like Alex Jones, I'm perhaps the biggest Alex Jones hater on the planet. I've done more videos making fun of Alex Jones than maybe anybody has ever. And so I took it upon myself to like laugh at him and mock him and even debunk a lot of his garbage arguments over the course of all the years that he was out there. So you can't look at me and say, oh, you're soft on Alex Jones. Quite the opposite. I'm more aggressive against him than anybody. However, you need to have the conversation from a place of principle where you understand and realize once you open that door, once you ban the Alex Jones types, that's it. It's over. Because now you just agreed on the principle of deplatforming and censorship. And so this was going to happen. There was no doubt about it. It's the oldest trick in the book. The first people that you target are people who are so broadly and universally despised that everybody kind of goes, nah, I get it a little bit. I can see why you went after him. But aha, they just got you. They snagged you already, you agreed to the principle, and then it's always going to come back to bite you in the ass. I mean, even our friends over at Jacobin, they had stuff that was deprioritized or deranked. They had stuff censored because they were talking about Bolivia. You know, like try having an honest conversation about South American politics, and they will immediately go after you. You know, like the idea that you talk about Evo Morales, even in like a nuanced way, they're going to say that you're the one who's doing disinformation. You see what I'm saying? Again, Russiagate. You push back against Russiagate, you're the one that's called a conspiracy theorist, even though we were proven correct. Talk about the 2016 Democratic primary and how WikiLeaks showed the documents, they rigged it. They effectively rigged it against Bernie. They would ban you. They wouldn't ban the people who are saying everything is fair. They would say you're the conspiracy theorist. The Iraq War, if these all existed, if these platforms all existed back during the lead up to the Iraq War, they would have banned the people who were arguing that we shouldn't go to Iraq. They would have said you're the conspiracy theorist if you questioned the weapons of mass destruction. Do you see the problem here? You cannot have a ministry of truth because who is going to watch the watchmen? You set up this council of, wise elders who get to determine who gets to live and die on the internet and who can exist, who has a right to exist. Of course, those people are going to have their own biases and their own opinions and their own perceptions and misperceptions and their own conspiracy theories, even though they'd all swear they're not conspiracy theorists. So here we are. We told you it was happening. And it's scary because, to be in a situation like this, you never know when it's going to come for you. You never know. And you never know when somebody's going to find some old thing you said and take it out of context and like, aha, enemy, see? It's like, and what's your recourse? You have no recourse. You have no recourse. There's no open and transparent process. If you're going to have something as serious as like the internet death penalty, there should be a process. There should be recourse. There should be checks and balances. But no, everybody was just begging for the corporate overlords, the Silicon Valley oligarch billionaires, to police the discourse. Why the hell would you trust Jack or Mark Zuckerberg to police the discourse? They're some of the last people I would ever trust to police the discourse. It's ridiculous. So here we are. Antifa accounts gone. Socialist Workers' Party in Britain gone. International Youth and Students for Social Equality at the University of Michigan gone. Bunch of pro-Palestine groups gone. TikTok, son. It's only a matter of time before they come for all of us. And that's a devastating place to be.